We're going to get into some spice. This caller is an anonymous caller, pronouns he, him. Just in the USA says, why is gender a personality trait? When a person is gay and trans, they make that their identity. How, if it's a part of humanity, is it your personality? I'm not entirely sure I understand the last part of the question, but you are live, Anon. Go ahead. Tell us where you're feeling.
Yeah, so the way that I speak is kind of different. Your guys' like extensive vocabulary kind of is like not on my cup of tea kind of thing. So I want to try to do the best that I can to like try to explain where I'm coming from. So when I'm asking, like, someone says that they're gay or trans, it seems like this is like some kind of personality trait that they're trying to just make it seem like it's all about them, when I don't really understand. Like, when you tell me that if you were gay, like, how does that help me determine whether you would rather vote for Superman or versus Lex Luthor? Like I could say that Jeffrey Dahmer is gay. Does that mean all gay people are like Jeffrey Dahmer? That doesn't really make any sense to me. And
no, definitely not.
I'm trying to figure out like why, like, a label kind of like a label tries to make it seem like this is what and only you are, when the only way that I'm going to find out who you are is if I ask you what you like and what you don't like. Like,
I completely agree with you.
If you like to go to the movies,
just FYI so far.
Or yeah, if you like to go to the movies, or if you like to go hiking, like that's not a gay or trans trait. Like, it's
correct.
You can only tell me if you like to go hiking if you like to go hiking, or if you'd like to, like, punch someone in the face for absolutely no reason, then that kind of sounds like you're a douchebag. But
so
I don't.
If I can jump in here, Anon. Yeah, no, I get where you're coming from, and I understand where your position is. So, like, there's a few things here to unpack. I think one of them that I want to address is you asked, like, why the labels? Because it doesn't really tell you almost anything about the person. And I completely agree with that. Like, whether a person is trans doesn't really tell you anything about their values, or like who they are as a person, or like what kind of things they enjoy. And being gay doesn't really tell you any of those things either. Gay people and trans people are just people. They're capable of the full breadth of human behavior and emotion, right? Labels, to me, serve two primary purposes. One, they can do a good job of summarizing certain elements about who you are, right? If you tell me you are gay, I know that you have he, him pronouns, I'm going to assume you're a cis man. If you're not, that's okay. If somebody tells me they're gay and they're a cis man, to me, that tells me at the very least that primarily their attraction is to people of the same gender as them. But I've met gay people who are like, I'm like 95% gay. Every now and then I can hit it off with a woman the right way and it can work. I've met people like that. Even if, like, they would still say I identify as gay because 98% of my attraction is to other men, right? So, like, labels don't really tell you much either. They give you a good summary of somebody, but really to know the specifics, you have to ask more questions. Like we've mentioned on this show before, like, I consider myself bisexual, right? But if I tell you that, that doesn't really tell you anything about my attraction. Like, and if anything, it almost gives you like less information to work with, because you're like, oh, so I could be hypothetically attracted to anyone for any reason, right? But if you were to ask me, like, what do I find attractive? I could tell you, like, I find, ambition attractive. I find intelligence attractive. And, like, those are more important factors to me than necessarily what gender somebody is. The second purpose that labels serve, in my view, is to help us understand sort of like shared struggles that we face, right? So, like, gay people face certain obstacles that are pretty unique to gay people in the United States, and trans people face unique obstacles. And when we talk about somebody being a part of the trans community, it can sort of help us understand that this individual is a member of a group who faces certain challenges and would benefit from, certain accommodations, certain interventions, certain, community engagements. Like it can help us kind of start to make assumptions. And this is kind of how we like do all categorizing. Almost all forms of categorization are like, when we're putting things in boxes like, oh, this is male and female, this is cat and dog, this is whatever box you're putting something in, there's almost always examples of something that you put in that box that probably don't really belong in that box. And so it's always important to ask more questions and understand the specifics, because usually boxes just help us start to understand something and they don't tell the full picture. So that's kind of my initial thoughts. I want to get Lux in here, but I also want you to respond, because I know you said our vocab was like not your cup of tea. So I want to make sure that you're like with me and you're following along and all that.
Yeah, I'm following along. It's
cool.
I think the one thing that I think I'm having a difficult time understanding is the attraction thing. Why should we care in the first place when the only way that we're going to be truly attracted to someone is that if we have the same kind of things that are in common with them versus just the way that they look? I don't understand the fact that people think that something that looks pretty or something like that is the same as good, when the only way that I'm going to actually know if I relate to that is if I find out the story, which is, in fact, the person that's telling me about them. Like, for instance, like for me, I wasn't in a relationship for 8 years just because the people that I was talking to, I wasn't relating to the way that I was, that we had. Let me try that again. When I was talking to them, we didn't have the same things that are in common. So I only saw them as like a friend. So I guess what I'm like, I don't understand why the humans go so much into attraction when we have more things that are actually more like things that we need to understand that are actually like deeper in the world. Like I think humans
I would like to ask a clarifying question really quick. I'm curious, are you saying you don't understand gendered attraction? Like why are people gay or straight? Or are you saying like you don't understand the focus on aesthetic attraction? Or are you saying like, is this a conversation where I'm about to tell you that you're asexual?
No, I'm wondering just why people put more of like a worry on being attracted to someone versus how many foster kids there are in the system. I don't understand why it seems that like relationships are at the top of people's priority list, when at the top of my priority list, it's like, how do we fix like broken systems? And it feels like that humans are trying to unlock something that we've already had, that was kind of like, religion was kind of forced on us. So I feel like religion was used as like a fear, like a fear tactic, and it kind of closed off our minds. And we're trying to like kind of fire it back up. And a lot of people are still trying to figure out how to not be afraid of something. And it's hard to be.
I mean, like, there's a lot of different angles that we could go off of on this, but like, I mean, so yeah, it is an interesting question to ask. Why are people focused on their close interpersonal relationships versus broader problems? Well, because broader problems are harder to tackle and we have more control over our immediate circumstances. And we, like many people, do prioritize their own personal happiness in a way that like blinds them to broader societal issues. I think it's good for people to have a healthy mixture of those two things. It may just be that you're meeting people who are generally like avoidant of those big issues, because it's disturbing to think about children starving. It's disturbing to think about the fact that it's very likely that 5 billion people are going to die to climate change in the next 90 years. It's not a pleasant thing to think about. And a lot of people also default to the normalcy bias, which is this idea that like, well, surely it won't happen to me. And honestly, I think that that does play kind of into what we were talking about earlier with like this one trans person is good. It's like the normalcy bias of like, well, I already know that person and therefore I wouldn't make those same assumptions about them. But yeah, there's an assumption that if you just do what you're supposed to do and live your life, then everything will be fine. And it's not something I can hold people personally responsible for because we have been living in a society that engineers that complacency and apathy in people. So people feel powerless because they have been rendered powerless. People are caring more about aesthetics and buying things and products because that has been engineered for them in a societal level, to the extent where when you're in public school, you're learning how to be a good consumer and you're learning how to be a good worker. So it may just be that, you have successfully avoided that brainwashing, and it can be a kind of difficult to exist in society when you feel like I care about climate change more than anything else because it is the biggest problem. And I also care about COVID a lot more than a lot of other people because I'm disabled and I know how that's going to fuck up our society. But it's hard sometimes to talk to normies.
Yeah, I also think. Sorry. Go ahead, Anon. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go for it.
No, like I agree with everything you're saying, right? Like I'm not disagreeing with anything. I think what my problem is that like I obviously know climate change and stuff is like an issue, but when I see like people talking or something, or when I'm even trying to talk, it's like fear. I think fear is the biggest issue, and when people aren't good at something, they get afraid, and then they kind of like shrivel up, and then they try to go back to something that they're good at. And I think that the reason why we have so many assholes in the world is because like they're only good at knowing how to be an asshole, and they're afraid to do something different, and so they just go back to the thing that they're good at. And I like for example, like there's like things like the Nazca lines, some kind of like spheres that humans like created like in nearly perfect circles. And it's like, there's no evidence of like where the tools went. And that same thinking of like, where did the tools go is how I think of like how fear kind of made, I guess what humans already had. I don't really know how to explain it that well, but like I'm trying to say that fear kind of took something from us that we already had and that we're trying to gain back. Like, for instance, like for example, like the Pythagorean theorem. Like, why is it called the Pythagorean theorem when there's a tablet that predates Pythagoras by like 1,000 years? Like, there's things that seems to be already on. There seems to be like lost knowledge that we're trying to find. And I think like you and everyone that's like a part of this community is firing up like that lost knowledge. And we're trying to figure out how to gain it back. And it's only been like realistically like 150 years since the fact that we've only been able to live to the age of 30. So I mean, like, for example, like your 18 years of your life are just kind of like,
Anon, I love you, but that's inaccurate. I love you so much, but the idea of the average age being 30 is thrown off by the massive amounts of child death, but people have generally lived to be about 60 years old for like a long time.
Oh, okay. Well, then I am wrong about that.
It's a statistics thing. Yeah. No problem.
Yeah, it's an average age thing. I do want to jump in, Anon, and just say, because we're kind of a little bit all over the place, and so I just kind of want to like hone in here and sort of focus a little bit. Like, I very much deeply empathize with and understand kind of what you're talking about. Like, for me, like I very much value relationships and like romantic love. That's important for me personally. But like, I very much understand the preoccupation with all of the awful things in our world that need like immediate attention that are being virtually ignored by everyone who has the power to do something about it. And it's really frustrating. And I also hear the sentiment coming from you that's sort of like, sounds like you're kind of saying like, why are people so focused on romance if we all started pushing for people to do something about climate change, about the genocide in Gaza, about, X, Y, and Z, that we could actually get some traction. And I'm sure you're right that if we all came together, we would make some massive changes really quickly. Unfortunately, this is like the whole problem of politics, right? I mean, this is why I think a lot of politicians sort of sell their soul to like these lobbying groups and sort of sound like these focus tested phrase generators, because they're trying to represent the values and the ideas of so many people simultaneously, and to say like, oh, I and one person can represent the needs of all these people at once, which is like, almost impossible to do. Like, so many people have so many different struggles that are going on. Never mind the sort of global, issues that we're facing. So I definitely understand the preoccupation with it. I will say I'm not sure. I just want to leave this out here. And if you don't think this is valuable for you, feel free to completely ignore this, okay? I do think there's maybe a risk in being preoccupied with these things. And it sounds to me, and I may be wrong, like it sounds like you may be a little preoccupied with some of this stuff. And so I hope you have like a therapist or a friend or a parent or someone in your life who you can talk to about this stuff, because while I understand it's frustrating that people don't really see the urgency, that's why I'm not invited to family gatherings anymore, because I only talk about the things that seem important to me, and nobody likes that. But like, it's not good to be preoccupied with it either. I think that's part of the reason that people value, there is like a propaganda machine to make people think that love is going to fix all their problems in the US, for sure. But I will say, having somebody who that you trust and that you really care deeply about, who you can turn to, is a really good way of coping with those feelings of distress from how insane the world is and how many problems we need to face. Having a person who you can sort of relax with and laugh with and not think about all of those things with is just as important as being actively engaged in the fight. Resting is resistance. Like, if you aren't healthy mentally and physically, you aren't going to be able to give your best to the movement of resistance that is fighting those issues. And so it's really important to make sure that you're not isolating and that you're, engaging with people in your community and your friends to keep yourself as mentally strong as you can, so that you can really give those fights your all, because they need people who are like you, who are like, I can't sleep because all I can think about is how fucked up our, foster care system is, and how many children have no homes, and how many kids are being abused in the foster care system. Like, those kids need advocates, and you could be that person. But you definitely need to make sure you're taking care of yourself in order to do that. So I do hope, and if you feel like none of that is accurate, you just throw it away, that's fine. I don't know you. But I'm just based on this call, I'm getting a sense that maybe it is consuming a lot of your thoughts. And I just want to make sure you know that there's an element of that can be unhealthy as well.
Yeah, like, I just want to jump on that a little. There's two extremes, and like, I agree with you on that. Focusing only on the superficial, like only being focused on like gossip at work or your boyfriend or whatever, like that stuff is, if it becomes all consuming, like, I do think that's a toxic lifestyle. If people are just never taking into consideration, they're not educated enough to really meaningfully like vote informed, like vote in an informed way, and yet they still vote. Like, I think that that's bad. But yeah, I do also think that if we focus entirely on the cause and we try to give ourselves entirely to it, that is also a form of extremism in the way that we handle things, and that some amount of balance is necessary for our well-being personally, like our well-being to, experience relationships, and have somebody who cares for us and all that, and like shut our brains off. And also, yeah, it makes you a better advocate, along the way. So ultimately, if your goal is to be a good advocate, then focusing on your personal social relationships is actually way more important than a lot of people give it credit for, until they're already far too burned out to be able to backtrack.
Yeah, I guess it's just when you see all these people that are just like struggling in the world, it's like kind of asking, like, to not breathe. You know what I mean? It's like, obviously you have to live your life like the way you guys said and everything. And I obviously, like, there's parts I agree and disagree with, obviously, but I guess it's just it's hard when you like look up something like in like San Francisco or whatever, that's like the most expensive city, and then like people can't even like own an apartment or something, and that yet in the same exact state you have people just like going ranting off about like how their gender seems to be more important and the people that are struggling and that are on like the streets and stuff. Because I think California has one of the worst homeless, if I'm not mistaken.
Well,
But,
I think this is a little bit of the like the fallacy of relative privation, and what that means is it's kind of like saying we can't walk and chew gum at the same time. Like trans people are a real group of people in the United States who is marginalized. Our access to care is marginalized. We are more likely to experience homelessness and rejection from our family and peers. But at the same time, homelessness is also an important issue, or, you know, like, and we
or
have
trans people even.
yeah, and we have the ability and the tools to fix it. We have the spaces to fix it. But, you know, we have issues like private equity owning the majority of like the homes and apartments in the United States, making access extremely difficult. Like I get what you're saying, but also I think it's important to know that I don't think any person is saying my trans identity is the most important thing in the world or even in the United States. It might be the most important thing to them in their life. And I think that's fair because trans people are a marginalized group, and we, just like homeless people and people in the foster care system, we need our advocates as well. And that's why like this show exists. Like this is something that I know a lot about. That's why I talk about this all the time, because I have the skills to be an advocate in this group. And so I do it. But like, I've always been an activist and always a progressive left-leaning activist. And if I had the knowledge base to talk a lot about homelessness, I would probably spend all my time talking about that issue because it's also very important for sure. I think it's important to know that we can address multiple things at once. I understand there is a bit of a, I think it's fair to say some issues are more important than others in terms of like the relative risk to the health and safety of the individuals facing those issues. But like trans people face a lot of those, you know, not being allowed to have access to transition greatly increases our risk of suicidality, depression. Like I said, we're more likely to be homeless, and we're more likely to be in poverty than like cisgender people. So like, I think these issues have a lot of overlap, and that's kind of where like intersectionality comes in as well. It's kind of paying attention to the way in which these issues overlap and how they can have a compounded effect on the individual who exists at those intersections. So I do want to wrap up this call because we do have other callers to get to, but I do want to hear the last of your thoughts on that, Anon.
No, I still have like many other questions, but it's still like I just wanted to kind of get like your guys' perspective, I guess, versus just reading continuous stuff off the internet, because the internet doesn't really get you that, can only get you so far without someone's actual words, I guess. So
yeah, I'll give you my last thought, because taking care of our gender is a way for us to become effective at activism. Like when I'm talking about you have to be in a good relationship and stuff in order to like decompress and stuff, trans people have to address those fundamentals in order for us to then be politically active. And many, many of us are politically active. And it then becomes a conversation about our political gender identity, because that has been politicized by other people. So trans people, by and large, I think most of us would like to just be like, okay, I'm trans, now let me go do something else, and not have to talk about being trans all the time. So that's just our way of making sure we're the most effective we can be and like the most present community members we can be as well.
Yeah, I guess I think it just sucks that you have to have some kind of label just to say that you're a good person, I guess. And I just have a high disagreement with that. You need some kind of label to just show that you're a good person.
Well, nobody here is saying that. Nobody here is saying that. And almost no trans people I know are saying that. So I don't know who is saying you have to have a label to be a good person.
No, just the way that people just have to have some kind of label just to make them seem like they're a good person. Like, I don't know, like, I don't need to have like a label just to tell you that you're nice or something. Like, I don't
Sure.
really know how to explain it that well.
No, I
But
get what you mean. You definitely don't need
know.
a label to be a good person, and being a part of a marginalized group like being trans doesn't make you a good person. As we discussed today, one of the worst atrocities in the last month was committed by a trans person. So, like, yes, labels are sort of the window dressing to the deeper conversation. But thanks for calling in on. And if you have more questions, call back another time, okay?
Yeah, I definitely will.
Cool. All right, bye.
Thanks, bye.
That was interesting. I wasn't really sure where that was going to go when
Yeah.
it started. It didn't go where I expected.
It was a little bit more like the kind of call I expect when I'm on with Matt. It's like, what is going on here?
Wow, that was a great clip we just watched. Hey, Eve, what should the people do now?
Leave a comment, click like, subscribe, patreon.com/ does that say call the line?
Yeah. But if you could have made, we could just make it a little more natural. On the next clip, the outro will be much better.